Charity Dingle is left battling for her life next week in Emmerdale after a terrifying rush to give birth leaves her trapped in a lift alongside Ross Barton and Mackenzie. It's a nightmare situation for Charity, as the true father of her baby is forced to help deliver the child right in front of her husband. When Charity begins to bleed heavily, the situation quickly becomes critical, raising fears for both her and the baby. As her dramatic labour approaches, Charity throws an extravagant baby shower for her granddaughter Sarah Sugden, trying to distract from the secrets she's hiding. But when the cake fails to arrive, she and Mac set off to collect it themselves. Their journey soon takes a turn for the worse when their car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, leaving them stranded without any way to call for help, just as Charity goes into labour. Ross happens to drive by and reluctantly agrees to take them to the hospital. Back at the party, Sarah grows concerned about Charity's absence and discovers several missed calls, alerting everyone that something is wrong. Things go from bad to worse when Charity, Mac and Ross become stuck inside a malfunctioning hospital lift while her contractions intensify. While trapped, emotions run high as each of them reacts differently. Charity tries to stay calm, Ross focuses on helping, and Mac struggles to cope due to his past trauma. Elsewhere in the hospital, unaware of the emergency unfolding, Jacob Sugden finally reports Dr. Todd's bullying behaviour to HR and confronts her directly. Back in the lift, Charity's panic increases as the pain worsens. A midwife communicates through the intercom, guiding Ross and Mac through the delivery, while Sarah later provides emotional support that gives Charity the strength to continue. However, the situation takes a devastating turn when Charity begins to haemorrhage, leaving her loved ones fearing the worst as her condition becomes life-threatening. Tensions rise between Mac and Ross, while Sarah and Jacob struggle to process the traumatic circumstances surrounding the baby's birth. With emotions at breaking point, the question remains whether the truth about the baby's father will finally come to light, potentially tearing the family apart. If Charity survives, the ordeal could change everything, leaving her torn between giving the baby to Sarah or holding on, all while the secret threatens to destroy everything she holds dear. In recent weeks, the ITV soap Emmerdale has highlighted the issue of workplace bullying through the storyline of resident Dr. Jacob Gallagher and his superior, Dr. Caitlin Todd. For reasons that have not yet been explained, Dr. Todd has been steadily undermining Jacob's self-belief whenever she gets the chance. Rather than guiding him as he settles into the demands of a busy NHS hospital, she appears to enjoy putting him down. To further unsettle him, the surgeon sends mixed signals by occasionally being kind and offering praise. This has reached a point where Jacob no longer knows which version of Dr. Todd he will encounter. One of the most powerful scenes so far came when Dr. Todd told Jacob he would never complete his training, effectively branding him as incompetent. This confrontation followed Jacob's decision to ignore Caitlin's father's DNR order and perform CPR. Furious and distressed, Dr. Todd lashed out at him, leaving Jacob so shaken that he fled the hospital in tears. Kerry Wyatt is among those who have noticed Dr. Todd's bullying conduct. After overhearing her speaking down to Jacob, Kerry later confronted her in private. However, she made an error by mentioning Jacob's past involvement with an older woman who took advantage of him. It didn't take long for Dr. Todd to discover that Jacob had been groomed and abused by his former teacher, Maya, during his youth. She searched for information about Maya online, leaving viewers questioning whether she intends to use this knowledge against him. In the upcoming episodes, Jacob finds it increasingly difficult to separate his professional life from his personal one, especially now that Dr. Todd has moved into the village. His anxiety intensifies when he learns he has been called to testify in Beowulf's trial. Noticing his distress, Ross Barton checks in on Jacob and learns about the situation with his bullying boss. Though he is somewhat taken aback to find out the boss is a woman, Ross encourages Jacob to address the issue directly. Later in the week, Jacob makes a bold decision to file an official complaint with Dr. Todd's employers. However, when his colleague Rich hears about his plan to approach HR, Jacob becomes concerned after being warned it could ruin his career. Just as Jacob makes his way to the HR office, Dr. Todd spots him entering. Emmerdale reveals what lies ahead for Moira Dingle, as fresh tension within the family begins to unfold. Next week, Moira hopes to spend some quality time alone with Kane after her long-awaited release from prison. However, her plans don't go as expected when her troubled husband suddenly walks out, feeling overwhelmed by the situation and the expectation of intimacy. Following his prostate cancer diagnosis, Kane has been worried about how it might impact his relationship with Moira. With the house finally to themselves, they get an opportunity to reconnect, but Kane isn't ready to open up emotionally. A source from the village explains that Kane struggles with the pressure surrounding intimacy. Although he and Moira are finally alone together, he feels as though the moment has been forced. He begins to suspect that Moira has been discussing his situation with others, which leads him to storm out. After leaving prison, Moira is finding it difficult to settle back into normal life, especially since she no longer has her home after selling Butler's farm to the Tates. The situation worsens when Sam makes an insensitive remark about Kane, which further dampens the atmosphere. With wishing well unusually quiet, Kane becomes convinced that everything has been arranged, heightening his discomfort. Later on, Moira feels lost and unsettled, missing Kane's closeness and unsure of her place without her role on the farm. When Robert Sugden notices how much she is struggling, he is filled with guilt, knowing her life might have taken a very different path if he hadn't secretly planted evidence on her land. Emmerdale reveals Moira's future as a fresh wave of family tension explodes. Moira Dingle is looking forward to spending some private time with Kane next week, after finally walking free from prison. Unfortunately, her hopes quickly fall apart when her stressed husband storms off, feeling uncomfortable and pressured about intimacy. Since Kane was diagnosed with prostate cancer, he has been worried about how it could affect his relationship with Moira. Now that they finally have time alone, there is a chance to reconnect, but Kane struggles with emotional vulnerability. According to a village insider, Kane cannot handle the pressure surrounding sex. Even though they finally have the house to themselves, he believes it feels staged, and suspects Moira has been discussing his issues, leading him to storm out. Freshly released, Moira is finding life difficult to readjust to, especially after losing her home following the sale of Butler's farm to the Tates. When Lydia offers them space at Wishing Well, Moira eagerly accepts the chance to be alone with her partner. However, Sam's blunt remarks about Kane's confidence spoil the atmosphere. In the quiet setting, Kane becomes convinced everything is part of a setup. Emmerdale is broadcast on weeknights at 8 p.m. on ITV1 and is also available to stream on ITVX.